Welcome to Coffee Nick's Movie Picks, a bold blend of coffee and movie review podcasting. My name is Nick Delaney, and I am your show host, film reviewer, coffee snob, and the guy who experiences a sheer and unbridled wave of euphoria every single time that Batman-related content is released to the public. In this episode, we are going to be having the first ever series review of The Penguin, an HBO limited series based on the titular character. We'll be pairing all of this excitement with a lovely coffee review of the origin story latte from the White Hart in Lynchburg, Virginia. Please take a seat, stay a while, and let's talk The Wizard of Oz over some coffee. But first, please make sure you're following Coffee Nick's Movie Picks on all social media platforms. You can find us at Coffee Nick's Movie Picks on Instagram and TikTok, and you can follow me on Blue Sky at Coffee Nick. This is my personal account, but I will be using it to post updates about the show. Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. The show is now a video podcast, so we'll see how that goes. So far, I am not loving it, but that's okay. We're going to stick with it for a little bit and see how it goes. I realize how underprepared I am for a video podcast. This little desk I have cannot even hold my laptop, let alone a laptop and a microphone. So I need to get a new desk, and I also think I need some more lighting. But for now, this will do. For now, this is okay. You can see me, and that is all that matters. But yes, I'm going to try to have this video element moving forward. I released a little trailer episode just sort of like introducing the video element. So go check that out if you want. It's really nothing important in it. But I'm excited to have this now. It'll be pretty cool. And, you know, it's a step outside my comfort zone. And if it doesn't work out, I'll just go back to audio only because I know I love that. But who knows? We'll try it out. We'll see where it goes. We'll see. In other news, I do have a special announcement I want to make. And I'm so sorry. I know I feel like I always have special announcements, and that's just a me thing. I feel like I always need to have something going on that I'm doing, like a big project. Like when it's not I'm starting a podcast, it's like I'm doing a special series. Anyways, the special announcement is that starting in December, 1 week from today, I am going to be starting a special holiday series called Coffee Nick's Uncommon Christmas. I am very excited about this. This is another series that I have long dreamed about doing, but I've always been passionate about Christmas movies that are not traditional. Year after year after year during Christmas time, I feel like the same movies are put on, the same songs are played, and it's a little tiring. And sure, those are classics for a reason, but I think it's really cool when there are original and creative Christmas movies or Christmas songs. So I made Uncommon Christmas to highlight some of those sort of peculiar Christmas movies. In addition to that, I'm going to be putting together a playlist of some uncommon Christmas songs as well. Some of these might be classics that are just reimagined in creative ways, and some are just completely original Christmas songs that no one talks about. So I'm really excited to be putting this together, and if everything follows through correctly, there should also be some special guests on this series that have never been on the show before. So that is also very exciting. But that will be starting in December, and I'll be releasing an episode every single week of December. So stay tuned for that. It'll be a lot of fun. What else is new with me? Nothing. How about we just get into this episode? So, in our first segment, Now Brewing is a luxury coffee discussion and review segment. Now Brewing in this episode is the origin story from the White Hart in Lynchburg, Virginia. A little bit about this cafe. This cafe describes itself as Lynchburg's living room, which I think is pretty cool. It makes me think a lot of the Friends Cafe, Central Perk. That sort of felt like a living room for, that fictional neighborhood in New York, I guess. But I think that this cafe, the White Hart, actually really does bring that to life. When I went to this cafe, there's sofas everywhere. There's like all sorts of little nooks and crannies you can sit in. It's just a really good place to, catch up with friends or even spend time by yourself reading a book or something. And they have like books and magazines sitting out that you can read. It was just like a very comfortable, warm, and laid back atmosphere. It really did feel like a living room, but for the community. And I think that that is something that has been lost in coffee shops recently, especially if you look at chain coffee shops. It is just completely eliminated, really, with the use of drive-throughs and everything. And yes, drive-through coffee is important, and it has its uses. But I also think that we need to hold the space for living room coffee houses, if you know what I mean. Hold the space for the lyrics for Defying Gravity. Yeah, you know? Now, some of you may be asking, what is the origin story latte? Interesting question. That is a very interesting name for a coffee. I don't think there has ever been a coffee I've reviewed just named like the origin story. But this latte is made with house cascara, brown sugar syrups, and topped with cinnamon. Next question is, what is cascara or cascara? I don't know how to pronounce that. So that is the husk of the coffee cherry. So some of you may know that coffee is a fruit, or specifically a coffee bean is the seed of a fruit. And that outside husk is what the cascara is. And most often when coffee beans are harvested, we know that coffee beans are then, roasted, and that's what we make coffee with. What happens to this husk, this cascara part? Most often, this husk is just discarded or it's used as a fertilizer. However, in Ethiopia, which is considered the birthplace of coffee, this fruit is used to make a drink known as kishir. And eventually, coffee shrubs, as we know, made their way to different continents, specifically South America and Central America, which is another, huge place where coffee is grown. It made its way there, and that's how it earned the name cascara, because that means husk in Spanish. So this is the husk of a coffee. So I mentioned that in Ethiopia they were using this to make a beverage. Most often, cascara is a tea drink. And the notes in this tea, it has sweet and fruity notes of hibiscus, cherry, red currant, mango, and even sometimes tobacco. It really is nothing like coffee. This is very different than coffee. But it's used to make a tea, which is really cool. And it is used sort of in this coffee drink. So I am actually not sure if this drink had espresso in it. I'm pretty sure it did, but it certainly had this cascara in it, probably ground up. And I think that's really cool. So sorry for the history and agriculture lesson, but I think it's really cool to use this coffee as an opportunity to learn more about coffee. So, with all of that said, when I had this coffee drink, the origin story, I definitely did get a bit of a fruity and floral hibiscus taste a little bit. And I think that was really cool. And as I mentioned, this drink also had a brown sugar syrup and cinnamon in it. So pairing that with a fruity and floral taste, that's a very unusual pairing, but it worked really well in this drink. And I think that's what made this drink extra special because if it wasn't for the cascara, I think that this just would have tasted like, a brown sugar cinnamon drink you could get at any other coffee shop, but it really was something special. And I really did like this drink. With all of that being said, I'm going to give the White Hart and the Origin Story Latte the Nick pick. The White Hart is a lovely coffee shop that really feels like the description of being the living room for this small town. There are several sofas, little nooks and crannies to sit in, warm lighting, and an overall sense of community, which I love. The Origin Story Latte was a unique fall drink combining brown sugar, cinnamon, and cascara flavors. Most importantly, this drink taught me something new, which, love that. You have to love that. Moving forward to our next segment, the coffee thought. This is an outlet dedicated to voice my many incoherent thoughts over a lovely cup of coffee, which, as usual, I do not have coffee with me today. I just have my water. Now that I have the video podcast, I can show you that it is in my Charlie XCX and Troye Sivan present Sweat water bottle, hydro flask. Are you bumping that? Water tastes better in the sweat water bottle. I'm actually drinking sweat. I am. Anyways, my coffee thought today is a continuation of a previous coffee thought that I have had before. And this is not good news that I'm relaying to you all. I recently heard through the rumor mill. So this is alleged. I think it's like the sort of alleged that is practically confirmed. I heard that Muppet Vision 3D in Hollywood Studios in Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida. I heard that Muppet Vision 3D will be closed. Not only closed, but destructed and replaced with a Monsters Inc. ride. No, 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 but it's okay. The Muppets are going to take over Rock and Roller Coaster. Fuck you. Fuck you. I don't care. Great. The Muppets are taking over Rock and Roller Coaster. That's great. I don't know anyone my age that cares about Aerosmith anymore. Let them do it. I'm happy about that. But actually, I'm not happy. Give me Muppet Vision 3D. Let that stay. And give us Muppets taking over Rock and Roller Coaster. I demand both. Not just one, not just zero, both. I don't know what is with Disney's current fear of the Muppets. I don't know if they think the Muppets are, too political or too satirical for today's day and age. I, frankly, personally, I don't think they know what to do with the Muppets. I don't think that they have writers that are smart enough and quick witted enough to take advantage, to properly use and respect, not take advantage, to respect the Muppets. Jim Henson, I'm so sorry. Time and Disney, the Muppets fans, Disney walks over us like a damn doormat. A damn doormat. I love Monsters Inc. Monsters Inc. is probably my favorite Pixar movie. Monsters University, no. Monsters Inc., yes. However, Disney, you could take your bajillion trillion dollars and probably just buy more land somewhere and put Monsters Inc. land there. You could make it, I guarantee you, Walt Disney, you could make it work. You could make it work. Why do we have to do that? Why do we have to keep tearing things down to build new things? Monsters Inc. isn't even a new movie, you know? The Muppets is a beloved, Muppets Vision 3D, that is a beloved attraction. The Miss Piggy statue is, that is a monument in itself. I hope if they're going to be taking this whole thing down, at least leave that for us, please. And Disney was saying, we'll find a way to preserve, the theatrical experience of Muppet Vision 3D. I don't fucking care. I don't care. I don't care. You could preserve it by maybe leaving it there and not tearing it down. Have you thought about that? Have you thought about that? You could, they're saying they're going to preserve it. They're probably just going to put like a version of the show on Disney Plus. At that point, it's Muppet Vision 2D, because how are they going to do Muppet Vision 3D at my house? And how are they going to get the old men in the box that critique everything? How are they going to get that in my house? Sorry, I'm blanking on their names. I'm a fake fan. The experience won't be there. It won't. It won't. And how can I have hope in them? How can I have faith that they will preserve Muppet Vision 3D when they're doing everything to not preserve it in their parks, and they can't even come up with original Muppets content today? How can they preserve the Muppets when they can't even think of the Muppets? They can't even use their brains to come up with something creative that's Muppets related. So, yes, I'm so happy that the Muppets are now taking over Rock and Roller Coaster. Cool, long time coming. And I don't mean to sound greedy, but that's not enough. I want the Muppets Rock and Roller Coaster, and I want them to keep Muppet Vision 3D. Both. In fact, I want them to build a Muppets park, a whole park just for the Muppets. And, I want them to protect the Jim Henson studio too, because that was being threatened as well to be purchased and torn down and turned into whoever knows what. You, let what happened to the Muppets? Why did Disney decide, they just love buying something up and then just kind of spoiling it and then being like, okay, well, let's forget it. Like, how about we forget it as a society? Sorry, everyone. They won't even say sorry. They wouldn't do that. But they just love purchasing something, buying the rights completely to it, and then frankly ruining it and moving on like it never happened and just ignoring that intellectual property forever now. I am not someone who thinks the sequel trilogy to Star Wars episodes 7, 8, and 9, I'm not someone who thinks those were as bad as people say they are. Episode 9, maybe. But like they really, the content was already there. They just had to adapt like books. I think they were just, I don't know. There was no reason to just, completely negate everything that was made beforehand just so they could tell this story. That was pretty much just a retelling of episodes 5, 6, or no, 4, 5, and 6. And, look at Marvel. They had something going with Marvel for a little bit, but I mean, look at Marvel now. Look at Marvel now. It's just a shame. And I think the writers for these projects, I'm not talking, this is bigger than the Muppets. Actually, nothing's ever bigger than the Muppets. Let's be serious. But I think that these writers really are trying their best with what they have. And it's hard, to pay homage to something that is so huge in pop culture. Um, what I really think the issue is probably like executives sort of stepping on the feet of these writers saying like, oh, you need to make sure you do this, 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 and this, and you can't do this or that. Um, and pushing further down like a writer's vision. Maybe that's what's happening. Maybe it's not. But I don't know. I just don't think it's that hard. The Muppets are supposed to be like, you can sort of put them in any sort of context and it's funny. Like just pick like Muppets Christmas Carol. People love that. Just take a story and throw the Muppets in it and throw like one really well-known actor and just acting with a bunch of Muppets and no other human being. Like I want to see Robert Pattinson act with them. No, no, no. First, I want to see Willem Dafoe act with the Muppets. I want to see like Mia Goth with the Muppets, like a very high camp actor. Tilda Swinton with the Muppets. It has to be an actor who could be a Muppet. Someone that is so exaggerated that they themselves could be a Muppet. I think is what you need. Um, so Disney, here we go. Here's all these ideas coming out. I'll let you use them. You can use these ideas. You do not even have to pay me. Consider this charity. This is charity. I'm giving you these ideas, Disney. If you're listening, have them. Have them. I think that's enough of that. I'm going to be moving forward now to what we all came here for, which is the Now Showing. Now Showing is our feature ideological analysis and critical film review segment by yours truly. Now Showing this week is The Penguin. The Penguin is an HBO original and limited series starring Colin Farrell, who plays Oswald Cobblepot, the iconic Batman villain, following the events of 2022's The Batman film starring Robert Pattinson. After Gotham City was flooded by the Riddler and Batman shook up the underground drug ring in Gotham City, Oz Cobblepot uses the chaotic state of Gotham City as an opportunity to forge his own path to power. Now, this is the show's first ever, my show, Coffee Next Movie Picks. This is our first ever series review. And I am not going to go episode by episode talking about rating each episode for the series because I think that's just monotonous and not necessary. I'm going to do like what I do with every movie and just sort of take this overall experience and talk about it and sort of have a discussion. And in the end, give it a little Nick rating. What I usually do. But for anyone who knows me, they know that The Batman 2022 is like top five for me favorite films of all time. And this is sort of like a Ladybird situation where I've been scared to ever talk about the Batman 2022 on this podcast because how do you talk about it? I feel similar to this. I will come out of the gate saying that the way I felt watching the Batman in theaters for the first time is the way I felt when I watched this, and I did not expect that. I had incredibly high expectations for the Penguin series, and I was just blown completely out of the water by it by the end. This series, the whole way through, found a way to surprise me and to captivate me for every single episode. Usually in a series, there's like a slow build, there's a slow climb to sort of this catastrophic finale. And usually in the finale, we see our protagonist sort of like in an impossible situation that they need to sort of puzzle their way out of. I felt that way about every single episode of the Penguin series. This was phenomenal TV writing. This was just so, it was so wonderful. I feel like every single episode, nearly every episode, Oswald Cobblepot or Oz Cobb, as he's called in this series, which I thought was funny. I feel like in nearly every episode, he was sort of put in an impossible situation that had seemingly catastrophic results. Before I go any further, yes, there will be spoilers in this episode. So please, go and watch the show. I'm telling you right now, it is a masterpiece. So go watch it, come back to this. Every single episode sort of had catastrophic conclusions. I think specifically about Salvatore Moroni's wife and son, the episode where Oswald burned them both to a crisp. I'm thinking about Sophia Falcone, who I will discuss in depth in a minute here. I'm thinking about her episode where she killed her entire family. Like, these weren't just like side characters that just came into the show and died. Like, they were sort of shaping up all these characters to play a major role, but they killed them off. And you kind of think like, where do we go from here? And the show found a way every time to find a place to go from there, which as a writer, I was thinking like, where could we possibly go at this point? But the show kept kind of like working different angles and sort of it just explored everything that it needed to. It delved into like every nook and cranny of these different characters, and sort like it explained the rationale. It further built like this Gotham City, which hands down, this is my favorite Gotham City iteration ever. When we're considering even Tim Burton's Gotham City, Christopher Nolan's Gotham City sucks. Sorry. I'm not saying those Batman movies suck, but that is like the most bland interpretation of Gotham City ever. But it further, illustrated this Gotham City, and I thought it was just so great. I got right into this. I also need to state that, like I said in the very beginning of this episode, Batman content or just Batman has long been so close to me, and like the Batman world is just so important to me. Anytime that like Batman content is released, I am there day one, with the exception of the new Arkham Shadow game, which is like only from MetaQuest VR. I have not played that because who's playing that? Which I'm like, please, we need accessibility for people. I guess physical accessibility, but also like financial accessibility to play these games. So hopefully they will bring that to like standard video game consoles. I also hear they're making a new Arkham game that's like set in the future, so excited for that. That is where my love for Batman started, was the Arkham series. I always loved Batman, but I remember I was in like second grade and I played Arkham Asylum for the first time, and I could not be more obsessed. Like I was obsessed with the backstories of every single villain in the Arkham series, and I bought these books that like had all the DC Comics characters and you could read up on each of them and like learn about them. I just fell down a rabbit hole and I've been stuck in that rabbit hole ever since. And every time something Batman related is released, even if it's Merry Little Batman, like that thing they released last year, I'm in. I'm watching. And I love it. Batman Caped Crusader came out this year, and that was fantastic in its own ways. Not perfect, but it did something new, and I thought it was really interesting. But throughout all of these different iterations and versions of Batman, especially in the Arkham series, which I consider perfection. But even in this Arkham series, I think that the Penguin is one of the most underexplained and most brushed off Batman villains there is. He's sort of just a caricature. Anyways, he's always just sort of a personality, and he's sort of just an obstacle for Batman to reach sort of a larger villain. Like he's always just someone Batman has to come across and like beat up, and he's always been sort of a corny character too. Like Tim Burton's Penguin, amazing. I love that version of Penguin, but definitely comic booky. Has a little army of penguins. Umbrella that's also a gun. It's just he's never taken seriously as a villain. So going into this series, that's why I was so, I was kind of nervous. I was like, how are they going to make this penguin sort of a main character and fit him into this, you know, Robert Pattinson, Matt Reeves version of Gotham City? How are they going to make this work? And also, this penguin is different than any other penguin we've gotten. Usually, penguin has like that strong British accent. I think it's British. And, he's wearing a top hat and everything. And like I said, the umbrella that's also a gun and all of that. But this penguin had like a strong New Jersey accent, and he was sort of like a mob boss, and he was like, dealing these drugs and everything, and very like New York, and he's a mama's boy and everything. And you never really think of Penguin having parents, even. Tim Burton touched on it a little bit, but still. Not in the same way. So going into this, like as I was a few episodes in, even 2 episodes in, I was thinking, where is this going and how are they going to make this work and how are they going to make this something special and worthwhile, but also respect this already established version of Penguin, which the already established Penguin is very different than this one. How are they going to do this? By the very end, it wasn't until the last scene of this series did it click for me. Did I get it? I was absolutely blown away by this series. This this was incredible. As a lifelong Batman fan, as someone who's like never taken Penguin seriously because, he's never been taken seriously, I this, changed me. And I remember coming out of the Batman in theaters. The first time I saw it in theaters, I went a few times. It was my friend's birthday, and we were going out to a club. And I was talking to everyone in line about it, how it changed me as a person, and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And the scene where he glides off the police building, and how it depicted Batman in a new light, and how he was like shown as a hero, and like a man who changed for the better. I was blown away. And in the same way, I was blown away by this. And that is thanks to Colin Farrell. Colin Farrell, I mean, if you know him, he's an Irish actor, who does not look like he does in the Penguin series. This performance is just unbelievable. It's so different. Um, I, okay, getting into Sophia Falcone's character. Sophia Falcone. This character was entertainment gold. entertainment gold. She was just interesting and captivating the whole way through. Let's look at who plays her. I have it written down. Kristen Milioti. I think that's how you say it. Yeah, Kristen Milioti. Unbelievable performance. Phenomenal. Um, I loved that this character had a dark sense of humor. Kind of balanced Penguin very well. This was the perfect antagonist for Penguin. You know, no one's a hero or a villain here. They're all villains. But this was the perfect antagonist. I love how she tied into Penguin's story so well. And she was just ruthless, but you could also understand like where she was coming from in a way. Her backstory was so tragic, and it fit so well into like what was established in the Batman film, in regards to Carmine Falcone and the type of person he was. And, her backstory also spoke volumes about this world, this version of Gotham City, and like the place that women have in it. Very similar to this version of Selena Kyle, which by the end, they kind of are maybe gonna team up at some point. Sorry. But yes, the parallels between her and Selena Kyle, how Selena Kyle's like kind of like her, but outside the Falcone family, while, Sophia had to deal with all of this while being in the family. I think they're going to be just an excellent duo moving forward. I can't wait to see how Catwoman comes back into this universe because she left at the end of the Batman film. Um, let's also talk about this, the costuming for Sophia Falcone specifically. Her costuming, like I did not know I was at the Gotham City Met Gala. This, I more most specifically, I'm thinking of, maybe I'll put a picture here since we have a video podcast and all now. Um, I think it was the very last episode. She was wearing sort of just like that plain black cocktail dress, but there was that like red sash tucked into her like breast. Oh my gosh. Oh my. That. You want to know what ate? That ate. That ate. Okay. She was so good, and she was just so crazy. That girl was crazy. I loved her. And the outfit at the end when Oz was about to shoot her and she was like standing facing the river, she was wearing like all red and she had like those 6-inch red boots and like, oh my gosh, just like such memorable costuming. And I just loved how well it fit her, where, she's very serious, but she also like, there was like some sense that she was having fun with what she was doing. And she was like a grief strucken like character, very upset by like the tragic murder of her brother, and out for revenge, but also like she wore a good outfit. She wore a good outfit. She made sure she was looking good when she was getting revenge. And also the Arkham Asylum episode with her, was just very well done, and it just helped you really understand this character. And I cannot wait to see her return. I know she will because I think she's a fan favorite, obviously. But I just wanted to point out just sort of like this outstanding performance and outstanding writing for this character. I honestly, as much as I am a Batman fan, I don't know if this character was ever in the comics or if this was just sort of added. Um, Whatever it was, though, this was an outstanding addition to the Penguin show. Um, Victor, I think, is also a character that I would like to talk about. Let's look. Who is he played by? Played by Renzi Feliz. This character was also just really great, and really interesting. I was worried about the inclusion of this character at first because we've seen like many shows recently kind of do this like father, like by circumstance father son dynamic trope. I think of like The Mandalorian as the first thing that comes to mind, or Last of Us, although Last of Us does it really well. Just sort of like by circumstance, this guy who you would never expect to be a father has to play a father figure to this like impressionable youth. Um, so I was concerned that the show would sort of fall into that trope, or it would somehow become not about Penguin and sort of about the origin stories to like this protege. So it did not do that. It did not do that. I think that I remember at the beginning of this show, Colin Farrell said, by the end of the show, you will think that the penguin is a monster. There's something stuck in my eye. You will think that the penguin is a monster. And he was right. This sounds bad to say, but I think that this character was, yeah, what they were going for was portraying Penguin as like a ruthless monster, this character served that purpose well. It was so tragic. It's so heartbreaking. And it just shows all the more. It paints the villainous, just sheer evil side of Oswald Cobblepot. And that's one thing that I was really hoping the show would sort of dive into, because that is one element about Penguin that I think is true to every iteration, is that the Penguin is a ruthless, just stone cold killer. He will torture, he will bite off a random guy's nose, he will like bloody, like nothing sort of turns him, like he is just gory, ruthless, and evil in a way that no other Batman villain is. And this show definitely was getting to that with like burning Salvatore Moroni's wife and son and like all the crazy shit that the Penguin did. But by the end, I was like, oh, yep, they just went for it. Um, and I think they they did it perfectly. I mean, this show understood Penguin in a way that I think no other show or iteration of Penguin did or has done. Um, they just understand like his desire for power and his willingness to do the most unspeakably horrific things to get to that power or whatever goal he has. The one, like, I think the really key discussion point I want to talk about with the Penguin series is the parallels that this show is drawing between the Penguin and the Wizard of Oz. Bear with me for a second here. So, all throughout this show, Penguin, Oswald Cobblepot, is referred to as Oz, and that's nothing new. Penguin has been referred to as Oz in many, many, many iterations of Batman that came before this, but in this one, it was almost exclusive. And he really was very sparingly called the Penguin. I think it was like just I could count on one hand the times that the Penguin was even spoken in this show. So he was really exclusively called Oz. And I remember in the Batman, there were a lot of theories that they were trying to draw parallels between Batman and Jesus. Because there was just like a lot of biblical subtext in the Batman, and sort of like how the Riddler thought he was a savior and how Batman thinks of himself as a savior of sorts. And that was sort of argued to be a true theory by, throughout the movie. Whenever Batman would startle someone, they'd be like, Jesus. And it was just very repeated throughout the movie, almost like they were trying to communicate that. Maybe they were. And that reminded me in this one, they just constantly, almost to a certain extent, were referring to the Penguin as Oz. And it made me think of like the parallels between The Wizard of Oz and this Penguin show. And I couldn't really come up with anything. But then in the very end, that last scene I was talking about, it was so apparent to me that I really think this to be true, where Penguin sort of like achieves this dreamlike goal he has of setting him and his mother up in like this penthouse apartment, and they won the battle, and Penguin owns the city, and it's happily ever after, forever and ever. And he finally achieves that dream, but it came at the cost of losing his mother in a way. She doesn't die, but she's now in sort of a yeah, vegetative state. But this character of Penguin is now painted as someone so delusional that he now returned to the lady he was seeing before. He was sort of romantically seeing someone and implied that he either paid her or is forcing her with violence to dress up as his own mother and act as his mother, and sort of like this delusional fantasy he has where he gets to keep his mother. It's just sort of like this disturbed fantasy of Oz's. And this is sort of like built up throughout the show where Oz sort of like is just a pathological liar and he's just lying about all these different things. And there's this plot line where Oz killed his two younger brothers, or his two brothers, and Sophia Falcone finds out about this and is trying to use it to break Penguin. She basically says she has Penguin and Penguin's mom strapped to a chair, and she's trying to cut off one of his mom's fingers, and it's like, if you just tell her the truth, I will not cut off her finger. And he can't even do it. And Sophia ends up not cutting off the finger out of just sympathy for the mother, because her son is such a monster. And the last few words that Penguin's mother says, I think her name is Frances. The last few words that Frances says to Penguin before she's put into this vegetative state is like, fuck you. I want nothing to do with you. You are a monster. Even despite that, when Penguin goes to the hospital, he's saying, like, oh, yeah, she, loves me so much, just playing it off like nothing even happened, like this delusional state. Um, so I think that that is just a facet about Penguin that has never really been expanded on before that this show did. And it was just fantastic. And I love that they did this and drew this parallel. At least I think this is my theory, that they were drawing the Wizard of Oz parallel. And the Penguin is sort of like the wizard. He is like a man behind the curtain. And he's just showing this fake front to so many people. And he just has all these multiple different faces. Like, is he a mob boss, or is he a mama's boy, or is he a politician? Is he a father figure to Vic? All these different things. He is just sort of like a liar and, you know, a deceiver. And he lives in this delusion world. And this is sort of an origin story of sorts, which is why I picked this coffee to talk about today, the origin story for this episode. This is sort of an origin story. Like, they never really said this explicitly, but the Penguin we saw in the Batman movie or earlier on in this show, this is not necessarily the final version, the ultimate version of the Penguin. This show, I believe, was sort of like the story of how he gets to that, how he gets to sort of like him wearing a tuxedo, maybe even a top hat pretty soon, owning the city, living in a penthouse, sort of just like on top of everything. How does he get to that? So I think that this series was just done beautifully, perfectly. It respected everything. The Batman film, just the Batman, lore, the Penguin as a character. I don't think any Batman iteration has respected the Penguin as much as this, or understood him as well as this. My last note is that the Batman is not in this at all. He's not even mentioned. There are like, maybe there's some graffiti or like a newspaper that might mention him here or there, mention the Riddler here or there, but just never mentioned. And I love that. I love that, this is focused on the Penguin, with no interest of sort of selling out to, cash in and bring in audiences. It's not interested in doing that. This is interested in respecting and telling the story of the Penguin. So thank you to whoever wrote this and whoever made those decisions specifically. The most direct, thing about Batman we get is the last shot of this series is the bat signal lighting up when Penguin says, no one no one can get in my way. No one's going to stop me. And it's just the bat signal lighting up in the city skyline. Just a sign of what's to come. Yeah, someone's going to get in his way. So, uh, okay, I just got to nerd out about Batman and the Penguin for however long that was. Let's see, probably like 30 minutes. So thank you for letting me do that. Um, Obviously something I love to talk about. Maybe I'll do a Batman just series at some point and talk about all the films. But yeah, sorry if that was very nerdy of me, but if you know me, you know that this is like one thing I will just be nerdy about until the day I die. I The Batman universe just means so much to me. I know that's corny to say that, but it really does. And this is just a world I love to get lost in. It's so cool. It's so cool. I love it. I am going to give the Penguin the Nick pick. Although presented with every opportunity to disrespect this character, the Penguin series proves that no other iteration of the Penguin was as respected and understood by its writers than this one. Every episode of this series feels like it could act as its own finale, with catastrophic events challenging the protagonist every step of the way. This makes for a captivating ride the whole way through. Lifted by the performances of Colin Farrell and Kristen Milioti, who played Sophia Falcone, this series masterfully argues for and portrays the character of Penguin in a way that no other Batman-related project ever has before. I highly encourage you to watch this. It is well worth it. Even if you're not a Batman fan, I think that there's so much to enjoy about this series. It is truly like, at the same level as like The Sopranos or Breaking Bad. It is just high quality TV watching. And if you do like the Batman, you will love this, I promise. If you grew up playing the Arkham games, kind of knowing the Penguin as sort of a goofy obstacle villain to get to the larger threat, this series will captivate you and thrill you and change you, honestly. So please go watch it. It is worth it. It is worth anything you need to do to watch this. It is so good. And thank you for letting me queen out about this for a few minutes. Since I've been doing that for so long, we are not going to have Dear Coffee Nick today, but please send in your letters. The Dear Coffee Nick segment, I usually read letters from fellow coffee and movie enjoyers about their own coffee and movie opinions, reviews, thoughts, hot takes, or whatever. If you would like to send in a letter, please feel free to write Dear Coffee Nick through DM or email the show at coffeenicksmoviepics@gmail.com. Everyone, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Coffee Nick's Movie Picks. If you like what you heard, please rate the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. That really helps the show to get discovered by more people. Thank you to everyone that is tuning into the new video format. I will be continuously improving this format. Once again, thank you all for tuning in. And until next time, that's like the worst Spanish I've ever heard. Thanks again for listening to Coffee Nick's Movie Picks. Our opening theme is The Moondrops, and our closing theme is March of the Hares, both songs by Nathan Moore. Before you go, please be sure to follow the show on social media at Coffee Nick's Movie Picks on Instagram and TikTok, and give the show the Nick Pick by rating it 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thanks again, and see you next time.